Hi, this is Bob Sorrentino from Italian Roots and Genealogy, and I'm here today with Davide Frumento, and he's located in Italy, and we're going to talk about his family and his background. So welcome, Davide. Thanks for being here.
Hi, nice to meet you,
So you, just in the pre-interview, you said you're located near Genoa, yes?
Bob. Yes, I'm located in a town, the city named Savona. It's about 46 kilometers from Genoa.
Oh, so not too far away, not too far away. So, like I said, I don't get to interview too many Italians about their research and their family. So it's great to have someone like you on the line. And so, where are your families from in Italy?
Yeah, I have a pretty, monstrous genealogy. I did a lot of research because I'm Jewish Italian, and my family is from Liguria, Piemonte, Austria, Spain, Hungary, and Poland, and Germany.
Oh, so you have a wide variety of
Yeah,
family, yeah.
yeah.
So, what have you found out, that's interesting since you have such a, varied background?
Yeah. It's an interesting story, actually. Until like 5 years ago, I didn't make, a deep research, a very deep research. But since I had a period of like 3, 4 months at home from work between one contract and another, I had the time to deepen my research. So I started questioning my parents about my family because they were always being cryptic and evasive about this. Because they wanted to protect me. In Italy, we Jewish people are not free and safe as in USA, I guess. So I questioned them, and they started to tell me some surnames, some origins, about some origins, and I started to find out some interesting things. Uh, Firstly, they told me about my Salomone surname ancestry, that is Jewish, like Solomon.
Hmm.
So I started to search and search. I started, of course, from Savona, because the first generation of going backwards were based here in Savona. But I discovered some interesting facts, like they come from Spain, and and going backwards, they come from Morocco.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, because they in the ancient times they escaped from Israel and in the diaspora. So they ended up in Morocco, in northern Africa, and then in Andalusia, in Spain, in Andalusia region. Then in the medieval era, when the Queen Isabel, the Catholic Queen, decided to expel all Jewish people from Spain, they ended up in Sicily. And they were kicked out also from Sicily, and they ended up in Savona and in Hungary, in Budapest. Firstly in Buda and then in Pest. Buda and Pest are originally were two different towns, and they merged. So this is the Solomon story. When they ended up in Liguria, they started pottery business. They were the first, potter artisans in Liguria, in Savona, really, in Savona. So this is a story of Salomone part of my family. This is from my paternal branch. From my maternal branch, they are named Garbero, but it's originally Garbero was Gerber, a Jewish German surname. So it means it roughly means tenor. So it's from the craft of tenor. They escaped in the 18th century from Germany, and they came to Piedmont during the 20th century, so like 100 and some years ago. They came to southern Piedmont and then they came to this is roughly a brief story of my family. Very brief.
No, that's very interesting, and a lot of people when they do their ancestry here, they do ancestry.com or something like that. They're surprised to find that they have 2%, 3%, 5%, 8% Jewish, because typically Italians, especially in America, don't realize that how many Jews came to Italy from, like you said, from Spain, and other places, even further back. I mean, even going back to ancient times, there were a lot of Jewish that wound up in Italy for various reasons. Yeah, funny that you mention it, because I descend from several Aragonas, kings of Spain, through my paternal grandmother. She's Piramalo and Caracciolo. And yeah, I say it the American way. I always get corrected, but I've been able to trace them way back, and they, when the Spanish came, they intermarried a lot with the Italian nobles, and so I've been able to trace very far back. So have you found? I mean, besides tracing the history and everything, have you found any really interesting stories, or there are any interesting things that happened either in the recent past or way back that you found out?
Yes, because I use a lot of free services for genealogy, like familysearch.com. It's nearly free, but I used the part for free. I could discover an interesting story that was far back in the past, near the 11th century. It was a very lucky strike for me. Through the family search website, I could connect my personal genealogy tree with another genealogy tree. And I'm talking about the Inama surname. There is an Austrian surname, Tirolo, Austria. And I'm talking about my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, and she was named Inama, Inama surname. So her ancestry traces back in Austria. I could connect my genealogical tree with another that traces back to such territories, but far back to the 13th century. And I discovered that she was like a working class hero, like the song, because he worked in Italcider, that was a steel industry based here in Savona, And I found an interesting piece of journal paper which tells a story. The story of this man who came from Austria, nearly an alphabet, but very skilled in manual labor. So they had to lift up a very heavy piece of steel craftsmanship, and he was very skilled in this. But one day, an engineer became envious of his work, and he wanted to take his place. He made these calculations to lift up such a heavy piece of steel, and his calculations were wrong. Yes. His calculations were wrong. Such enormous piece of steel fell on a house and destroyed it. So they fired such an engineer, and my Minam ancestor gave back his place, and he lifted up through various low calculations this enormous piece of steel, and here is the story.
That's a cool story. Do you know what building it was by any chance?
Yes, it's an abandoned building in Savona, near such a manufacturing field. Yes, near the harbor of Savona.
We'll be right back.
Experience Italy like never before, traveling with a scheduled group or create your own bespoke tour with friends with PhilItaly.com. Pack your bags and follow Phil. That's www.philitaly.co. Oh wow! So that's great to even know what the building was and everything like that. That's really neat. So you mentioned being Jewish and we know how that goes. I mean, even in the States, even today, there are a lot of stupid people don't appreciate other people's faiths or races or anything else like that. But did your family have? Because I'm always interested. I love history, and I'm always interested in World War II and everything. Did they have a tough time in World War II because they were Jewish?
It's another interesting story. Because when I first contacted you, I mentioned the fact of a Jewish family history, if you recall it. And it's very interesting because my paternal Jewish grandson neatly hid themselves. And I discovered it a few years ago. They are named Salomone, and I discovered that there was a person exchange. The person that my father thought she was her grandmother, she was actually his aunt, because to protect her real aunt, they had to switch those people. So he discovered such a history thanks to my research like 4 or 5 years ago. One of my ancestors of such Salomon branch was a partisan, and to hide himself, he dressed up as a Catholic priest.
Wow!
And the fascists and the Nazis bought it entirely. So he passed himself like a Catholic priest.
So he would walk amongst the Nazis dressed as a priest?
Yeah.
That's a great story.
He had and everything. Yes. So,
that's a great story.
Yes, so they saved themselves in such a way.
So I interviewed somebody. I don't recall who, and I don't recall what town it was. I'm pretty sure it was down south. It may have been Puglia or someplace. But her grandfather was building a building in Italy. He was in America, and he was building a building in Italy, and they just kept asking him for more money, and they were building walls within walls, just because they could keep making money, and he was there and they were there. And what she said was that during the war, they actually were able to hide people in the walls. They're actually able to hide Jewish people within the walls when the Nazis came, because I guess there was that much space, and there were 3 walls layered, and that's how they wound up utilizing this building to help save people. And I'll tell you a great story from an interview that I just did. I'll try and keep it short, but for anybody listening, it's the interview that I did on the third attic in Brooklyn, New York. This is probably, I think, the most amazing story that I ever heard. The Italians wanted to build a church in New York City, but they didn't have the land, so the bishop gave them some land. And while they were building the church, they bought another building to have mass. And 15 years later, they thought the church would be ready and they would be able to sell the building where they were holding mass and pay it off. But the church wasn't ready. They had no place to go, and they didn't have the money to pay off the church. The priest was walking down the street, and this Jewish man, shop owner, said, "What's wrong, Father? You look very sad." And he said, we don't have $500 to pay for the building. And he said, "I will get you the $500. And he did. He begged, he borrowed, he did whatever he had to do. They were able to keep the church. This gentleman died. 25 years later, his family, from Austria, no less, his family contacted the wife and said, it was 1939, "We need to leave Austria. The Nazis are coming. We need to get out." She didn't know what to do. She asked a few people around, and somebody said, "If you go to Cuba, they will be able to take them." She didn't know anybody in Cuba, but she winds up there, and as she gets off the airplane, she sees the priest that her husband lent the money to. He's now the Archbishop, and he reports to the Pope in Rome. He brings 25 people of his family to Cuba and feeds them from 1939 to 1945. Feeds them, clothes them, gives them a home. If you saw that in the movie, you would say, impossible, right?
Right. Yes. Yes. It's a very, very moving story. It's and luckily it's not too rare to hear such stories. I'd like to also to tell about my maternal Jewish branch. They were luckier than my father's branch, because they were able to change their surname from Gerber to Garbero. So they were passed as Italian farmers, and they switched apparently switched to Catholic converts, and they saved themselves like this, but the tradition remained, and the ethnicity remained, because we have to remember that Jewish people are an ethnic group, also an ethnic group.
And I didn't realize. I guess we were watching something on television maybe last year or something like that. I think in Rome there's a large Jewish community. There's a whole section, right?
Yeah, yes.
In fact, it was Stanley Tucci, who was he went to a restaurant, and the woman, I believe, was Jewish, and they were there a very, very long time. But again, people don't realize that there is a very long history of Judaism in Italy, because we just think everybody's Catholic in Italy.
Yeah. These people settled in Italy since the 3rd century of Christ. So it's a long, long story. Also in Genoa, we have a Jewish community. Not very big, but we have synagogue, we have everything. And it's funny because they did not tell me anything about my Jewish roots until I was 30. Now,
Really?
Really. Now I'm 36, and
Wow.
I was gaslighted until 30 about this in a very funny way because when I was 12, they made me go to church as a Catholic, but they flanked me with Jewish teacher of calligraphy, and I could learn Jewish tradition, Jewish calligraphy in such a way, and I did not suspect anything at all until I was 30. Yes, pretty stupid about me, but it's like this.
So how did they? What did they say? They just say, "All of a sudden you're Jewish."
When I became curious about my origins,
Right.
I was already pretty expert about everything about this because they made me study all these topics. And when I, asked the surnames and the origin of the surnames, I was struck by the truth. I said, okay, those are Jewish surnames. So why didn't you tell me to protect you? They answered.
Oh wow! Yeah.
Yeah. But now I totally embraced my roots, and this is a very, very lucky thing for me. From 2 years, I could create and build the largest Facebook Jewish group in Europe. Like 20,000, nearly 20,000 members, and for Jewish people, it's like Woodstock.
So do you eat Italian food or Jewish food or both?
Both, and with no pork, but no, how can I say, seafoods.
Oh yeah, you can't. The shrimp, shellfish.
Yeah, so.
Shellfish. Yeah. I when I was 18, I worked for a Jewish lawyer in New York, and I learned about the dairy and the meat. We used to go to the dairy restaurants, and then we would go to the. I don't know if they have kosher delis in Italy, but it's fantastic in New York City.
Maybe in Rome and Milan, because they are very large cities and European cities, but here no. In Genoa, no. In Savona, no.
Yeah, well, and most of the Jewish cuisine here is basically coming from Poland,
yes,
Austria, Germany. Those types of places. It's not really Mideastern or anything like that. It's really from those places.
Yes, in the States, Jewish people are mostly Ashkenazi, Yiddish people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's what shows up on on the DNA. I mean, I think again, the DNA test. It really irks me when you do. Have you done a DNA test?
No.
You have to do it. It's so interesting. Italians don't do it. It's what's funny about it is here in America, a lot of people are doing it. My wife is half Sicilian and half Puerto Rican, and the Puerto Ricans, every Puerto Rican does a DNA test. She's got thousands of cousins, and I have found a few connections in Italy, but not many. Not many.
I did. Yes, I didn't make it such DNA test because it gives me like a genetic vibe, a Nazi vibe. So I didn't.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people think like that. Like I said, I may bring a few tests with me just to hand out to some of my cousins. We're coming next month. We're coming in June, and I'm going to meet cousins that I never knew existed.
Mhm.
We had to postpone the test the test. We had to postpone the trip twice because of COVID, and now I think well, I don't even care anymore. I'm just I'm just gonna come. But we're gonna, you know, uh, I found out that I have first cousins once removed that I never knew existed.
Yeah, I discovered some cousins around the world thanks to FamilySearch.com.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, great. Yeah,
they announced an event named Woodstock like 1 month ago. 1 month ago, and I discovered some cousins from my Austrian branch in USA, in California and Kentucky and Ohio, and as well in Argentina and in Peru.
wow, that's cool. That's nice.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, see, when my cousin Cinzia, she's a fourth cousin. When she put the name on Facebook, Pirmalo, she thought she would find cousins in South America. South America, where was the other place? Oh, in Spain. She never thought that she would find anybody in America. And then through her, I've made so many connections. And just recently, I found out there are grandchildren from my paternal grandmother. Two of them are in San Diego, in California. I didn't even know anything about them. So, but yeah, to your point, I've done several interviews with the people at Family Search. They're very accommodating, great people. Like you said, the website's mostly free, and I tell people when they ask me, I'm starting my research. What should I do? I said, go to Family Search first. I said, especially if you're not that interested in doing DNA and you're not that interested in finding, um, uh, you know, making connections and emailing cousins and things like that. That's a great place to start.
Yes, I mean, in Italy, we are a country with a rich genealogical heritage, and we have many places to search. Even if you are not a genealogist, I am not a genealogist. I am a biomedical researcher, so I don't know many things. But I went to bishops' archives and Catholic archives and offices, departments of government departments with archives, and I learned a lot of things. I even consulted Catholic archives written in Latin. It was amazing. I could see and read the calligraphy of the priest of that era, priests of maybe 300 this book,
Yeah, yeah.
written with a feather.
When I search the records, I'll go through the pages sometime and I see these people with beautiful handwriting, and then the record that I need is always written by some guy who wrote like me, which is horrible. Uh,
Yes, it's very interesting. You can learn a lot of genealogic techniques and tricks, and it's like a science, and it's very fascinating. It could take an entire registration like this, only to talk about this. Italy is very rich about this, and it should be said around on the internet.
yeah, and I'm trying to put together. Actually, we're not trying. We put together a business to do some research. I found a couple of people over there. One person will research in the churches. Another person, she could translate Italian, Latin, and Spanish into English.
Mm.
And then we came upon an expert graphologist,
Yeah.
um, and people in the States kind of poo-poo it a little bit. I find it interesting, but she did for me, my third great grandfather, Count Giacomo Piumalo, and gave me a reading on him. And then she also did my grandmother. And it's interesting. I say I tell people it's not an exact science, but I believe that, people can tell things from handwriting. I'm a firm believer in that.
Yes, yes. Me too, me too. Such features like calligraphy can be passed down in a genomic way. So it's not too far-fetched to say that.
Yeah, and on my grandmother, of course, I didn't know my third great grandfather, but my grandmother, I didn't know her well. She passed away when I was about 11 or 12, but I knew enough of her that the reading that I got was fairly accurate. I mean, it was close. I wouldn't say she every single point was spot on, but 90% of it matched. So yeah, again, it's just, to me, it's one more piece of the puzzle. It's great to have names and dates and things like that, but finding maybe some personality traits is like an extra special kind of thing,
Yes, yes. You can see it. I think you can see that feature passed down, especially when you sign one document with your personal sign. Because my calligraphy, the one that I use when I write down something, became doing more and more taking notes at university, very fast, very fast. But when I sign a document, I can see my sign very, very similar to that of my father, for example. So
oh yeah,
I think it's true. It's true.
yeah. I have a record from my great grandfather, and his signature is very similar to my father's. You could see certain, like when they made the N. My great grandfather was Nicola, my father was Nicholas, but you could see in the N and in the SSR, that it's similar, which is amazing.
Yes, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Davide, this has been great. I always have a lot of fun with these. Like I said, you're one of the few people that's done research in Italy that I've gotten to talk to. So this is special, and also, the fact that you've been Jewish for 6 years is another great thing. So
Yeah, officially, yes.
officially. Well, thanks again. I appreciate you taking the time.